Hello viewers, today we are going to learn about the balanced and unbalanced forces. This lesson will help us understand why objects move, stop, speed up and stay still. So without getting late, we dive into the chapter. Welcome to my Science Diaries. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to tell what type of force is acting on an object and how it affects motion. So why object moves or do not move? We use force to explain motion. Even when an object is not moving, force are still acting on it. For example, gravity always pulls the object downward. Look at the diver pictures. Why is the diver moving in one picture but not in another? On the board, forces are balanced, falling forces are unbalanced, floating weight is balanced by upthrust of water. Okay, look carefully at these three pictures of the diver. In all three pictures, forces are acting on the divers, but all the effect of force is different in each situation. Like in picture one, the diver standing on the boat. Here, the balance forces. The diver is standing still on the boat. He is not moving up or down. Why? Because gravity pulls the diver downward. This is his weight, and the boat pushes the diver upward for supporting the force. So these two forces are equal in size, opposite in direction, so they cancel each other, and that is why the diver stays still. And this is the good example of balance forces. Now we look at the second picture. The diver has jumped from the boat and is falling down. What forces are acting now? Gravity pulls the diver downwards, air resistance pushes upward, but it is very small, so the downward force is greater than the upward force. The forces are not equal. That is why the diver starts moving, his speeds become increases. This is a good example of unbalanced forces. Now look at the third picture. The diver is floating on the water surface. What is happening here? Gravity pulls the diver downward. Water pushes the diver upward. This upward force is called upthrust. The upthrust is equal to the diver's weight, so the forces become balanced again. And that is why the diver doesn't sink further, he stays floating. This is again a good example of balanced forces. So the same object can experience the balanced forces in one situation and unbalanced forces in another situation. So now we have learned what balance force is. So before knowing about balance force, let's look at the force a little bit. What is force actually? As you can see on the slide, a force is a push or pull acting on an object. Think about the example of bowling, pushing the pins. That's a force in action. Like example is gravity pulling a ball downwards. This highlights how even natural forces fit the definition of force. Forces always comes in pair, a key concept which leads to Newton's third law. You can explain that for every action there is an equal and opposite reactions, like the gravity pulling a ball down. It also mentions the magnitude and directions, highlighting the force is a vector quantity. And the example you are seeing with the ball and the gravity perfectly illustrate the Newton's third law. It describes how a ball is moving downward due to the gravity experiences and equal and opposite forces. In this case, 9.8 Newton downward. In this slide, we talk about the net force. We can explain this like net force is the overall forces acting on an object. Like example, if the force act in the same direction, you add them. Like 10 Newton plus 10 Newton equal to 20 Newton. But if they act in the opposite direction, you subtract them. Like 10 Newton minus 3 Newton is equal to 7 Newton. Like we can use this tug of war image as an example, and we can see as two teams pulls in opposite direction, the net force depend on how strong each team is. If the forces are equal, they cancel each other out, resulting in zero net force. And the balance forces, and then we point to the examples providing to show how the net forces is calculated by adding and subtracting. So when the forces are equal and opposite, they cancels out. The object behave as if no force is acting on it. Or we can say balance force occur when all the forces acting on an object are equal, and meaning the net force is zero. The object's motions doesn't change. Look at the example like a book resting on a table has balance forces. A car moving steadily in one direction is also a perfect illustration. Balanced forces do not change motion, they only help the object continue what it is already doing. The leaf falls at a steady speed because the weight pulls it down, air resistance pushes it up, both forces are balanced. When forces are unbalanced, the object cannot stay the same, its motion must change. Means when forces are not equal, they cause a change in motion. The effects include speeding up, slowing down, or changing direction. We can use the example like falling apple, a car accelerating, or a soccer ball being kicked to illustrate this. You can see the girl on swing. When someone pushes her, that push is an unbalanced force. It's stronger when the forces like gravity and air resistance which are acting on her, and this unbalanced force causes her to move faster or change the direction, swinging back and forth. So this swing is an example for unbalanced force. This push clearly shows how an unbalanced force leads to a change in motions, making the swing move. This happens because the unbalanced force applied changes, and a strong push creates a greater unbalanced force, making the swing go faster. A slower or smaller push result in less acceleration, so the person swings slowly, as you can see on the slide topic. So unbalanced force cause the acceleration, deceleration or turning. The cyclist accelerate because the thrust is greater than the resistance, so the forces are unbalanced. Now we take a look about the important misconceptions where the many people think motions needs force, but this is not always true. A football slows down because of friction and air resistance, not because of motion itself. This idea was first explained by the Galileo, where Galileo Galilei was a famous Italian scientist. He made groundbreaking discoveries in astronomy and physics. Regarding forces, Galileo played a crucial role in formulating the concept of inertia, which basically states that an object will continue to move with constant velocity unless a force acting on it. This was a big shift from previous thinking. Where a simple example is a ball rolling on a smooth surface, Galileo realized that the ball would keep rolling forever if there was no friction or air resistance. He concluded that the object naturally tends to stay in their current state of motion unless a force acts on them. Okay, viewers, now imagine a boat moving on a water, and what makes it move steadily or slow down. Imagine a boat has a motor providing a forward push, like the thrust. At the same time, there is a resistance from the surface it's moving on, like friction and air resistance. When these forward and backward forces are exactly equal, they cancel each other out, and this results in a net force of zero. So the boat moves at a steady, constant speed, neither speeding up or nor slowing down. And the forces that can make a bot stop, slow down, or move back are primarily resistance forces. The water resistance and air resistance acts to slow the bot down. To stop the bot completely, a bot might use a reverse thrust, which create an unbalanced force, pushing it in opposite direction. So, in most real world situations, the multiple forces are acting on an object simultaneously, and the key is to consider the resultant force, which is the total effect of all those forces combined. Hence, the boat moves at a steady speed because all forces are balanced. Resultant force tell us whether the forces are balanced or not. So viewers, let's try to understand the resultant force through the biker race. Imagine the roar of engines, the speed and the thrill of a biker race. In a race like this, what do you think determines who wins? Is it just the fastest bike or is there something more at play? It's all comes down to resultant force. Think of it like a tug of war, but with forces acting on a biker. We will explore how different forces like the engine's push and air resistance combine to create a resultant force. So tell me who will win the race, and for under and by understanding this, we can predict who will win the race. So are you ready to calculate the winning force? As you can see on the screen, there are three motorbikes diagram which shows the different Newton values. To see who is winning the battle, we calculate the resultant force. And for this, you can see if arrow point the same way, add them, and if they are opposite, subtract them. So look at this motorbike with 10 Newton pushing left and only 2 Newton pushing right. The resultant force is 8 Newton to the left. It's unbalanced. And but if it's 2 Newton on both sides, the resultant force is 0. That means it is balanced. So if the resultant force is 0, the forces are balanced. And if the resultant force is not 0, the forces are unbalanced. So forces are balanced if they cancel each other out, and they are unbalanced if they do not cancel out. An object stays still or moves at a steady speed if the force on it are balanced, and unbalanced forces change the speed or direction of an moving object. So these chapters help us to understand the Newton's law and motion in real life. And how this chapter help us to understand the Newton's law and motion, we will discuss about it in our next video.